she did a great job for Steve. You, I'm sure remember because you were department head, so.
You're on Zoom, just so everybody knows we can hear you.
He's still in like Arizona?
No, he actually moved from off the coast of Seattle.
Oh, really? Good. You tell me when we're ready to go.
Rob, are you ready? Yep, he's ready, so.
All right. Let's go. Good morning, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Guess not. Ann?
yes, I can hear you.
No, Ann, can you hear us?
Yep, Rob says.
I can hear you. You can't hear me?
Can't hear you, Ann.
I'm off of mute.
I can hear you okay, and I can hear the ledge. Can you guys hear me? It's Roxanne.
Rob, we am down here.
You can't hear us?
We're not hearing the screen, folks.
Yeah, he said just a minute.
Right.
Well,
Can you hear us now?
okay. Okay. Give him just a minute and he will. Okay,
Can you try it again, Ann?
Sure, can you hear us now?
Yes, we can now. Okay. That's great. Thanks, Rob. We'll get the meeting going, the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee for May 19th. We have Randy Brown and myself here in chambers, along with our County Administrator, Lisa Holmes, and we have Ann Koreman on Zoom. Lee Shurtleff is expected later, and we will probably hear from Amanda soon, I would hope. But we've got quorum, so we can start. We'll call to order. Are there any changes to the agenda this morning?
I don't have any.
Do we have any public comment?
No one has submitted any requests to come.
And there's no one else here in the chambers, so I'll assume there's no public comment this morning. Chair's report, I don't have anything new to tell you, except we were pleased in my district to see that the Highway Department is working on the Mill Street Bridge, which I'd received some comments about. I think I brought it up at a previous meeting. Mill Street Bridge in Freeville, because of the deterioration of the wearing surface up there. And so we're glad that that's happening. Why don't we go right to Lisa for our county administrator's report?
Thank you, Mike. Just a couple of quick items. The departments who have capital projects have submitted them, and I'm in the process of now working with them, working through the number of projects that are on the docket for 2023 and getting some clarifying information. And we'll be meeting with them together with Rick Snyder to talk through recommendations for financing, and we'll be bringing that forward to F&I in the summer for review. And also we have a meeting set up together with Aurel Amaro, our facilities director, and Holt to talk about the updating of the space study and kicking that off, which will be Holt will be conducting informational interviews with departments to see what changes have occurred since the last space study and to kick off that process and those updates. So I think our meeting with Holt is tomorrow to kick that off.
Really glad to hear that. I think that's part of our goals to have that done. Ann probably would like to comment on that, I would guess. We've been joined by Lee Shurtleff now. Are there questions for Lisa?
I want to let you know, I just got a text from Amanda Champion. She's having computer trouble and she's trying to zoom in.
Okay, well,
Oh, here she is right now.
good. She's arrived. I'll get you, Randy, just a second. There she is. Welcome.
Sorry, technical difficulties there.
All right. We just had the administrator's report from Lisa Holmes. Are there any questions, Amanda, that you had for her, or Lee? Lee, you just arrived too? Okay, good. Do we have Jeff Smith this morning?
I had a question for Elisa.
Oh, John's here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Randy. I said I'd get you and I didn't. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to know if there was any update on the public safety building, and I know that,
Don't forget your mic.
is there any update on public safety building regarding the repairs they want to do up there? I know that the cost was quite a bit higher than Aurel expected.
I think Aurel has just joined us. He probably would have the most up-to-date information on that.
We can ask him later on the agenda if you want, Randy.
Okay, well,
Okay, so John's here on highway. John, what would you like to tell us this morning?
Guess I got to figure out how to use all this stuff right now, but I'm not sure I have anything on my agenda.
Okay, we do have your capital payment summary this morning on the agenda. Folks have any questions on that John might be able to answer for us? I'm missing. We got I had to have a replaced agenda this morning. What packet page is that on for us? Earlier.
page 3.
I was looking on the back. All right, there's just one payment for the Etna Lane Bridge to Barton and LaJudas Associates for consulting services. So John, go ahead, Amanda.
Well, sorry, so is there a new resolution, or I still have the old agenda? Was there something added?
No, I
Sorry.
think, let Katrina answer. I think there were some missing pages on mine.
Amanda, somehow there were some missing pages in it. The electronic version online, I can send you a link really quick, but this was just a one-page document.
Okay, I see now. I am missing pages. Okay. Yeah, if you could send it really quick, that'd be great.
John, what are the crews working on?
Right now they are out there, well, except for the rainy days, they're chip sealing and doing some other miscellaneous minor maintenance around the county. I just want to say in regards to Etna Lane, the expectation is that they're going to be starting some work on Memorial Day weekend. They're going to keep the existing bridge open until Tuesday. So they're initially setting up to start the pedestrian bridge.
Is there an email going out on that to all the concerned entities? That it's gonna, about that date? I saw the one about Freeville, Mill Street, but I don't remember seeing one about a date on Etna Road.
There will be one coming out. Yes, sir.
Because the fire departments are really interested in that one, obviously. Anything else for John? Randy?
Yes, John, this is Randy Brown. I just wanted to say, I thought the highway did a good job of repairs on Trumbull's Corners Road to keep that pavement going. I thought the repairs looked really good and they worked well. So thanks.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Let's go to airport. Our radio star, I heard her this morning on the radio. Roxanne Noble, our highway director, or our airport director, rather.
Good morning.
Good morning. Anything you'd like to tell us this morning? We should go to the resolutions.
Sure, I can just give a brief report. The airports, we had our air service board meeting this week, and one of the things I'm looking at, obviously, I think as many of you know and can understand, is just increasing our revenue, whether it be airline or non-airline revenue. So I'm looking at, many different ways to do that. And as we've done some resolutions relating to that, I'm looking at our bill funding to see if we can possibly reallocate that to use for debt service. This is in the preliminary stages. I know there are many other airports across New York State that I've heard from, and I'm sure across the country, that don't really have any new infrastructure to use this funding on. It could be a long shot, but it's something I'm hoping that will be considered. So I'm working on putting together a couple of letters, and I'll be sending, information not only to the F&I committee, but to Shauna and Deborah as well, looking for, support, backing that we can use this $7 million for our debt service to, it was infrastructure that we recently did, and it will really help the airport continue to move forward. I have talks lined up with our 3 current airlines. I've been reaching out to them, on increasing service and how we can work together, as well as looking at a couple of low-cost carriers. So those are things that I'm working on, just trying to continue to make the airport sustainable as best I can with the reduction in service that we've experienced with the pandemic.
Roxanne, is there anything you want us to know out of the Air Services Board lately? You mentioned about talking with carriers, for example.
Nothing at this time. It's just, we recently did a survey that was sent around. Lisa co-signed with me, and just trying to find information of, what the community is looking for, not just businesses, but community members. And, and a lot of them, traveling for personal reasons, for leisure, a flight to Florida. So that's what I've been, having the Air Service Board work on, gathering data from local businesses, working, with members of the board that, Gary Stewart and Dave Prunty from the 2 colleges, getting information from students if we can on what would benefit them. So just anything we can to present to the airlines that will, show them that we do have the market here, that the airport is a necessity, and it can be used for many facets, for business travel as well as leisure travel.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are we ready to go to the resolutions? Resolution A, authorizing award of bid and anticipated receipt and acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration, a lot of A's in this one, and New York State Department of Transportation grant for rehabilitation of taxiway lighting construction at the Ithaca Tompkins International Airport. Someone want to move that? Got one from Lee, and I got a second from Randy here. Discussion, you want to lead on this one? Roxanne, please.
Sure. So as you notice, these resolutions are covering a lot. I'm trying to streamline the process, just making it easier and covering everything. So if we do receive the grant, we have applications in for this grant as well as the next resolution with the FAA for funding. And this would, we've also, we went out to bid to get the pricing, but this project, these lights were last replaced in 1998. So, part of our regulations and requirements from the FAA is we have to, maintain, the lighting systems, for air carrier operations as well as general aviation operations. So this, new lighting LED will, reduce the cost, but provide better visibility and safety on the airport and extend the overall useful life of the system.
Questions? Lee?
Just one question. There was a wide difference between the two, the bid on that. What?
It's crazy. CNS went through them and I'm not sure, I don't have the numbers in front of me detailing why the big difference, but I know that too. I asked Tom and he said Baseline either was just able to find them at a better price or maybe had some of the lighting in, but it's happened on a few times. It's very rare. Normally we're very close in many bids. It's usually close to the engineer's estimate, but this, it's happened on a couple of other even paving projects. And you just, we went back to make sure that, they both had everything in there, that, one didn't have extra, and they went through the bids a couple of times and verified, and I'll take it. I'll take, that well, a little bit cheaper.
It's always scary when you see one several $100,000 below. Where are they going to come back at you? But that's good though.
Yep.
Sometimes bidders who have all the work they really need will bid and put in a high bid and just see if they get lucky on it. And maybe that's what's happening here. I don't know. Amanda?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Roxanne. I have two questions. One, generally LED lights will last longer, obviously, than older kind. Do you have a sense of how long these will last and until you would need to replace them again?
I do not. And I'm considering, since the original ones lasted, from 1998 till now, I'm assuming these ones will probably last well beyond this life cycle that, the last ones have. So I'm not going to put an estimate, but I will reach out to and ask that and get back with you on that, Amanda.
Okay, that'd be great. And then my second question is about the funding. I don't really know how these things work, but it's anticipated funding. So what if you don't get the grant?
If we don't get the grant, and it's very unlikely that we won't. We've put in these two grants, and these were recommendations from the FAA that, these things need to be done. They need to be maintained. So it's a higher level of requirement. They base it on, safety, security. Those are, the top types of things that need to be replaced or taken care of or maintained. So
Okay.
It's almost a guarantee. I shouldn't say it's 100%, but it's almost a guarantee that these two grants will come through because of the need behind these two projects on these resolutions.
Okay, that makes sense.
For some
And
reason,
then
they push the grant back. Like if we don't get it this year and they push it back, then we wouldn't award this. We would wait and see
okay,
or could award, could hold their price. If not, what would the price increase be, or do we have to bid type thing?
okay, all right, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Randy?
Yes, hi, Roxanne. I'm looking at the funding. I added it up and it's about $860,000, but baseline is 666. Where does the other $200,000 go?
So the baseline bid for that is that, so it's for, I think it's in the resolution, I thought. The additional cost will be the construction administration observation, from our engineering, the independent fee estimate that we have to get for all FAA projects, and any administrative costs that we experience here. So it's the full grant amount, and then there's, multiple parts to the grant. So it'll be like overseeing the contractors. We'll have an engineer down from CNS. So it'll be those fees in there as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we ready to vote? Let's vote. Randy?
Yes.
Ann? Ann Koreman? Can you hear us, Ann?
She's not.
Ann?
Her volume must be off or something.
Let's take your vote, Amanda.
Sorry, I was having trouble doing that. Yes.
All right, Amanda?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, let's go to Resolution B, authorizing the award of bid and anticipated receipt and acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and New York State Department of Transportation grant for installation of new primary wind cone construction, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport. Someone want to move that one? Got a moved by Amanda, seconded by Ann. Discussion. Roxanne?
Sure. So when the FAA is here doing inspections and looking at everything, our current wind cone is in the runway area where it shouldn't be. So it needs to really be in the runway object free area. So a determination was made on where we need to put this wind cone because it's currently in a violation with the FAA where it's located on the airfield. So this is just following an FAA, guideline requirement that is a mandate that we have to move the wind cone. So again, it's probably unlikely that they wouldn't give us this grant because they determined that this has to be moved. So it's just for safety and complying with our FAR regulations, our federal aviation regulations.
Am I correct that the reason we have a wind cone is so that pilots can actually see which way the wind is blowing without having to look at instruments and things like that?
That is correct. Yep. On which end of the runway they land on.
Questions? Ready to vote? All right, Randy?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Anything else this morning for Roxanne? Roxanne, we appreciate you being here.
Great. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
All right, let's go to facilities. And I see Laurel Lamaro is here. Morning, Laurel.
Yes, good morning, all. How are you?
Good.
So on the agenda,
Go right ahead.
yeah, so there were two items. One request, report on the county's camera system. So it was unclear exactly the level of detail information you wanted. So I wanted to start with just sharing my screen and give you an overview of the number of security cameras we have countywide. Every county-owned building we have cameras at. And so I can
have at it.
Yes, so share my screen.
By the way, I see Alan's there this morning. Nice to see Alan too.
Yes. I think at the last committee meeting I indicated that we were expecting him to return shortly. So this is his second week back with us. So can you all see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the security cameras we have countywide, and we call them security cameras. They're not surveillance. There's nobody monitoring these cameras. We just have them running at all of these various buildings. And so you can see along the left, the county buildings, like your building, there's one exterior camera. It's a pan tilt zoom. So over on the far right, these are the camera types. Fixed camera is basically what it indicates. It's fixed, we can't move it. PTZ is a pan tilt zoom where we can move the camera, zoom in. And then there are these multi-imager cameras of 180, basically will view a 180 degree view. There are multiple lenses that can put that together, 270, which we typically would mount on the corner of a building to see around the corner of the building. A 360, which we'll see basically 360 degrees, and these newer bird's eye, which basically is a 360, but basically it sees everything in its view. And so those are the different types. As you go through the buildings, almost every building, we have an exterior camera for security. And then in several of the county buildings, we have interiors, and those are mostly where the departments have asked us to put interior cameras. And typically they would be in lobbies, entranceways, things of that nature. As you see, the building that has the most is Human Services building, and those tend to be in entrance lobbies, waiting areas, stairwells, things like that. So total, as you see in the bottom, between the two interior exterior, we have 86 cameras, which is quite a bit. When we started probably 8 years ago, it was just a few buildings, and I proposed putting security cameras more for viewing the exterior of our buildings. And we used it, and we wanted to use it back then for our snow removal operations, so we can get an idea of snowfall at our different building locations, and whether to bring in our plowing crews. So 2 or 3 in the morning, our maintenance supervisor can check the exterior cameras, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes up on the hill, health department, emergency response, they have snow, but in the city, there's no snow. So we can determine whether we need to bring more crews or not, or vice versa. Sometimes we have no snow up on the hill and plenty in the city. So that's what the initial intent was. When the county started doing the violence assessments, prevention assessments, talking to departments, some departments requested cameras. And so that's where we started. I remember talking to Joe Mariana at the time and indicated that it would probably be a better idea to standardize county-wide at all our buildings to put security cameras rather than going through these assessments. And then one year, some would ask for cameras, the next year others would. And so we did that for a couple of years where we just based it on the assessments that would be coming in from departments. But then after that, I recommended, made a decision that we just basically at every county building at least have some exterior cameras. And so that's where we're at this point as far as the number of cameras. We've increased and we will have probably another 1 or 2 at the mental health building. So typically what might happen is if there's an incident of any sort, a department may request, further assessments, reviews, which we did at the mental health because of incidents they had earlier this year, and propose, adding cameras, which we're going to be doing at mental health here within the next week to 10 days. Put them active. We've already started the installation process. So all of the cameras are video only. There's no audio. And also, when we first started 8 or plus years ago, probably the maximum storage capacity was about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. I worked with ITS, Greg, over the last 3 years to increase the server capacity for video. It takes a lot of space. And so they upgraded their storage capacity to virtual servers, which allows us up to 30 days of storage capacity of video. There is a policy regarding, video, and in the policy, we state that we would have as a minimum 14 days of video storage. Currently, we have up to 30 days. As we add cameras, that capacity diminishes. And there's a whole process if a department requires or would like, recorded video. Right now, most departments have access to view live footage of the cameras in their buildings, but they do not have the ability to do playback and record. There's a policy, if they would like that, they have to request that through county administration. We have 4 types of cameras: Hike Vision, Axis, and Pelco cameras are the brands. They're 4 megapixel in resolution, so they're very high resolution cameras. And they work in daytime or nighttime. We also, almost every exterior camera is 24/7 record. And most of the interior cameras are motion only to reduce the amount of storage capacity required. So that's an overview. At the bottom, I have a note that you don't see public safety, airport, or crash fire rescue there, but they do have their own cameras. We don't have access to those cameras. They manage and maintain those camera systems. So if you have any questions regarding those would have to go either to public safety or to the airport. So that's an overview. I can show you live what views of cameras if you'd like, but
Let's see what we got. Let's see if we got questions on what you've got. Ann and Amanda, if you have questions, please sing them out because I can't see you right now. Anybody have questions of Arel about what he just showed us up here? Randy.
Thank you, Rel. Where is on the old courthouse, says one exterior. Is that on the front or the back of the building?
Well, it's interesting that the actual camera is mounted on the old jail on the roof, on the parapet wall that faces the old courthouse. We didn't want to mount anything on the historic kind of structure of the building. So it actually shoots and can view the DeWitt entrance, the entrance that most of you go in for legislature. We can view that entry and basically the whole side of the building that faces the old jail, which would be the east side.
There's no interior cameras at all in this building?
No.
Is there a reason for that, or is this?
Well, as I said before, when we did these security assessments, that had not come up, and we have the ability to do that should there be interest by the departments. And so that's what's happened over time, that some departments have requested that. And I think some of it is as incidents occur and their concerns, they've requested that. So no, we can do that, but that has not been expressed, at least up to this point.
And on the main courthouse, I see there's no exterior cameras. Is there a reason for that, or?
Well, I should have put that in the notes. So the New York state courts, they have many cameras. You'll probably see them around the building. We don't maintain or have access to view any of those cameras, but the court officers in the New York state court system does. So they have multiple cameras in and around their building, or not our building, but they're basically occupy the majority of that building. So we have cameras on the old jail that view the employee entrance side of the main courthouse. But if you walk around the main courthouse, you'll see many cameras around the perimeter of that building. Those are not our cameras. We don't have access to view those cameras. The state courts do. And if there's ever an incident where we would want video footage, the courts have always told us that we can approach them to get recorded video.
Thank you. So if say the public library doesn't have any interior cameras, if they wanted, they have to request them, and then a decision will be made from there. Is that how it works? Or?
Correct. Well, actually, I mean, probably 8 years ago, I would first approach them to mount cameras, and the director at the time, library director, didn't want to. The most current director, we met with them and we said exterior cameras only. It's really for security. And because so much has happened over the last mostly 2 years as far as more activity, kind of criminal activity along that area behind the mental health building, the library, they were agreeable to mounting exterior cameras, but not any interior cameras.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions, Arel. Do we have a camera that takes a view of the Court Street entrance for this building, the old courthouse?
We have a camera mounted on the old jail. It's on the front corner,
Yep.
closest to the old courthouse, and we can see activity of anyone at least approaching the Court Street entrance of the old courthouse.
What about the alleyway on the west side between this building and church?
No.
We don't have anything in there.
No.
Well, that, I would think that we might want to be able to have that viewed too. And thanks for answering the question about the main courthouse that Randy asked. Are we coordinated with the state people about camera systems if we have an incident?
Yes, that's what I indicated before, that when we worked with the court system, maybe it's been 10 years ago, on the installation. We, since the court reimburses the county for all the work that we do in that building, we actually installed all the cameras and then they put it online on their system. So at the time, I asked the courts if we would be able to access video footage or recorded video footage if there were ever the need to, and they said yes. All we have to do is call them and they would provide that to us. We've never had to do that.
Thinking about a recent incident in the subway in New York City, I think it was, where there was an attack and the cameras were not working. Do we have a way of monitoring whether our cameras are working and to be able to reduce any time that they're not online as much as possible?
Yes. Lauren at ITS and Alan here in our office will monitor the cameras on a daily basis. And then they also get notifications if we have issues with the servers. I mean, all the storage is stored on county servers at Building C, virtual servers. And then I think an emergency response center is the only one that has their own server on site at their building for recorded video. But yes, we monitor that, and also the vendor that does all the camera installations and programming, they also monitor that for us. And they're very good at responding.
Good to hear. Anything? Oh, Ann's hand is up.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Arel, for this report. As far as the bike rack in the back of the legislature, that's on video, is that correct?
A portion. I mean, if you'd like, I can bring up the video, the video management system that we have, and you can see the actual video cameras that we have. So if there's any in particular, I can bring that one up that you can view.
Well,
Okay. I see Amanda would like to see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just know we've had stolen bikes from back there.
All right, can you see a dashboard right now that shows on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to live view. And so these on the left is where my pointer is, are all the buildings. We have our cameras, and so this is Annex Building C. And as I said before, we have interviews tend to be the lobbies upper left, and the two upper left are the first and second floor lobbies. Assessment wanted a camera in their counter where they have public, so we put that camera on the upper right there. And then the rest of the cameras are exterior cameras. The one I'm pointing to now, that's at the front entrance of the Board of Elections. And then the second row, the last two, that's the viewing the ITS. The server room is right where my pointer is. So they wanted to have good visibility of the server room. That's the generator for the building. We can view as I'm pointing to the main courthouse, which is the south entrance. And then the camera here, these 1, 2, and 3 that's a 270 camera. So basically it's mounted on the corner of Building C and it goes around the corner. So all of these last 4 cameras are actually one camera, but it's 4 different views of that. So you were asking let's see, this is the old jail. So the old jail, we have 2 interior cameras, one at the entrance.
House, I think she was asking about.
Right. But the camera that is mounted at the old jail, so right here is, so you can see the bike rack there. So it's limited. It would just be the activity there. We can see there's one bicycle parked there currently. This is the top landing to the DeWitt entrance to your building. And then we can see all of the basically parking in that east elevation of the old courthouse. You were asking Mike about the front entrance, and that would be this camera here. So we can see, some visibility of anyone approaching the Court Street entrance of the old courthouse. As I said, we really held back of mounting anything onto the old courthouse because of the type of finish that it has, that stucco-like finish. We can do that, but up to this point, we haven't to mount anything right on the old courthouse. But as I indicated, we can do that if that's strong interest, as well as interior cameras.
Looks like the views of the entrances aren't that great for this building. I mean, it looks like they're quite a distance and it's not as visible as it should be, in my opinion, but.
And you're probably right about that. So as I indicated, if there's interest to do, cameras on the building, on those entrances, we can certainly do that.
I'm thinking as far as security, if we had an issue, I know this might be controversial, but a camera inside the chambers is when I think when we would know if we have an issue with somebody or some people, it would be after they've arrived at chambers, and if there was some violence or threat of violence, that would be my main concern.
Well, that's certainly something that you can discuss as a group, and then I'm more than willing to meet with Kathy and members of this committee to discuss that. But it's something totally that we can do. I mean, there's cameras right now to record these meetings, but we don't have what I would call security cameras that are running, all the time. But it's totally something that would be very, very easy to do.
Yeah, when the public safety gave a presentation here, they talked about one of the, they like to be able to look inside a place before they go in. So I would agree with Ann on that. So.
Okay.
Right, if we had an active shooter or something.
Why don't we plan to talk about that maybe on our next agenda?
Okay, so this is the DMV, which is one that's probably one of the most recent, about a month and a half ago. We installed cameras there. They requested so that they can view, all the public counters, as well as the exterior, which is that lower right. They had an incident, I think it was early this year, where an individual threw a brick into the plate glass front of the building, and there was no video footage to catch that. And so we installed a video there. That's a leased property. So we don't do that very much at leased properties that we don't own. This one made sense. They've had incidents before, so they are able to view these cameras. Both Maureen at her office at the main courthouse can view these cameras, as can the supervisor at DMV. The next building is the Emergency Response Center. They have interior and exterior cameras. And they have a pan tilt zoom, which is that lower left one. That's one that it just right now it just rows all the time along the front of the building. Dispatch camera is the one there on the lower right. And the front entrance is the top left camera. The upper right is also pan tilt zoom, but they usually just leave it there. That gate is a controlled gate, so if anybody approaches the gate, they can zoom in and see who it is and whether to allow access to vehicles or anyone at that gate. The next one is the This is the Center for History and Culture. We have cameras there, and they're all interior cameras. Upper left is the entrance lobby. The upper right is the employee entrance. The lower left is the elevator on the first level. And then the lower right is the back entrance to the building. Human Services building. Between Human Services and Mental Health are probably the buildings that have the most cameras. So is a combination of the interior and exterior. That upper left is the waiting room area. And so security there can view those cameras throughout the day. Several exterior cameras. Those are all of the cameras, and these ones here that I'm pointing at that are circular, those are the bird's eye. Basically, it views everything, 360 as well as directly below. And those are nice. So if there's ever an event, you can, recorded event, you can actually go in and look at each view, not just the bird's eye, but you can look at the top, left, right, or bottom of that recorded image, which is nice. This is the day reporting side. Has interior, you can see the classrooms on the lower portion, and then the entrance into probation on the upper right, and then the left is the exterior entrance into day reporting. Mental health, where we're adding 2 cameras. They have cameras at every, this is the entrance here, is the larger image. The one I'm pointing to now is the reception area, the reception waiting area, the employee or county parking behind it, and then along that second row here are all the lobbies. So we have cameras in every lobby, and what we're adding to this within the next 10 days on the 5th floor, it's a tenant, the Alcohol and Drug Council, because of incidents that they had in their floor, as well as they had in February at the entrance lobby. And I suggested that we put a camera at their elevator lobby as well. So they've agreed to that, to put a camera there. I showed you the old jail.
ARL?
Yes.
But just so the committee members know that the cameras that view the old courthouse have the ability to zoom. Not all of our cameras do, but especially the south entrance can really zoom in on that and capture.
Right. Yeah, this one here. Yeah, this is a pan-tilt zoom, so we can zoom in to that, the bike rack there. And I think this, you must have adjusted this, Alan, because it's a little different than the view that we had before. But yeah, this one you can zoom in. I'm not sure if it'll work now, but we are able to zoom in and move the camera position. But then we leave it there and it'll record everything from that point forward. This is the health department. We have an entrance view on the upper left. This is the lobby. And then the lower left is the employee entrance. These are also fairly recent from early this year at the library. And this is upper right is that bird's eye. This is the entrance. And basically we can see all around. We can see the book drop that's over here. We can see anybody approaching from over by the bus shelter area, as well as the book drops and the entrance to the building. And as you can see, all of these are only exterior views of the building. So we try to have a camera by every entrance or exit of a building, which we do here. The upper left is the Ward Warner entrance. We can view anybody approaching. This one upper center is the employee entrance there. This is the garage. There's an exit right here where that individual is, so we can view that. There's another entrance here for what used to be Finger Lakes Library side. And then the lower one is basically the whole kind of Green Street view. Anybody walking alongside the building. And then Public Works, we have 3 cameras. We have the entrance to our building. We have the back area where our vehicles parked and access to our garages, which is not in the secure area. It's outside the fenced area. And this is a view from as you enter the fenced in area. It's 270. It basically looks around the corner. This is an entrance drive. And then as you go around the corner, this is the fuel island. So we have cameras of any activity at the fuel island, and actually Highway has cameras right there in the fuel island that they can view as well. And then the last cameras are solid waste. And so those probably been there 2 years. And they're cameras on the scale houses so that they can view traffic coming in and those leaving. And then there's cameras are taking longer, but the first row is the entrance to their office building, and then the lobby. There's the lobby on the upper right, and then the one that's taking a little longer is the entrance there to their office building. So those are all the cameras. I don't know if you have any questions regarding any of the particular buildings or cameras or views.
Arel, I am totally impressed, not only by the thinking that went into putting these cameras up, but the fact that you've been able to bring them to us this morning in real time, and we've been able to see views of all of what the cameras can see. That's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was doing a lot of trial runs early this morning with staff here to make sure this would work. And so
we've never had that at F&I before, so I think that's a real nice thing that we've done.
Quality's good too. Quality of the cameras are good.
I know, Alan, we appreciate your comments too. This is so important anymore. I mean, years ago, we would have all raised our eyebrows at whether we need cameras, but I don't think anymore that there's any question that we need to be able to document incidents, for example, that could happen. We have many vehicles in the parking lots. We have people going and coming, bicyclists, as has been mentioned. And this is one more level of security, and that's something we're interested in hearing about too, for our systems. And I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And I mean, Alan can respond to, we get approached quite a bit by the Ithaca Police Department, right, Alan? Both he and Lauren for footage from a lot of our exterior cameras.
Amanda.
Yeah, thanks. Can you just say again, and maybe you already said, but who has access to these, like on a daily basis?
So ITS does, and it's Lauren, the deputy at ITS, Alan, my deputy here, myself, and then departments. So where we've installed these cameras at each building, then departments in those buildings have the ability to view only. So they can view the cameras, the entrances of their building. And so most every department has access to that if they request it, and tends to be the department heads, deputies, and supervisors can have access, but it's only view only, and it's only their building that they can view.
That makes sense. Great. Thank you.
Okay, Lee.
One thing I'd mention just from my experience with it, and I think it underscores some of the safety considerations, the impetus for a lot of these cameras, as I remember, Arel, was part of our workplace violence assessments. And those are something you return to and are very attentive to on an annual basis. And these have been a great tool that have been added to ensure the security of our employees and clients.
Right. And that's what I indicated before that started it. I didn't give the term correctly. That workplace violence assessments that were done, that's what came up, requests from departments for security cameras, but it wasn't consistent. Some would, and what tended to happen is we'd install cameras at one building, and then county employees would go to that building for meetings and then notice that. And then the next time around, we did a workplace violence assessment, then they would request cameras. And so that's what I indicated before, that I approached Joe and said, well, really, we should be more consistent and almost standardize at every building. We want exterior cameras as a minimum. And then beyond that, if departments want some interior cameras in lobbies and general, public areas, we can do that. And so that's what you see now. When we started, it was just a few cameras. Emergency response had cameras when we built the building. We've added a few and we've upgraded those cameras over the years, but really probably emergency response, I would say, was the first to have it from the buildings that are on this list.
You always took care of me.
We tried.
Lisa.
Just wanted to make a couple of comments and underscore how often these are used for safety and security purposes, and how often we do get requests from law enforcement. And also at the same time, per the policy, we ensure that they're used for those purposes only and not for surveilling our own employees or the public that may be in the public areas, accessing services, et cetera. So I think STEP does a very good job of ensuring that they're used for what they're intended for and not for other purposes.
Thanks for that, Lisa.
All right, anything else on this topic? Again, Raul, thank you very much. We've also got this morning, we want to bring back one of our goals here about water filling stations. And I noticed Ann and Amanda had some online discussions about this. Either of you want to raise questions, or what would you like? Amanda?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for putting it on the agenda. I guess, partly I just wanted to know where it was left off last year. I was not on F&I last year. And I think I only came to the one meeting where it kind of the discussion got started. But I think what was going to happen was that Arel and Alan were going to do kind of a survey of what our buildings currently have and see, what the options are. And then come back. So I didn't know if they ever came back with that report, but just to go back a step, this is coming up because as you all know, we have a policy where, we passed a resolution almost 2 years ago about the county and the departments not purchasing single-use plastic items, including plastic water bottles. So the idea with that was to go along with that was that if departments aren't purchasing single-use bottles, then we would want them to have a place to fill up their own personal water bottles or a mug or whatever that was, clean, fresh, sanitary water. So people have that opportunity. So I think I'm explaining that right, and you can jump in if I'm mistaken. But so anyway, so I've been working with the EPP team, the environmentally preferred procurement team, to look at all the products that we're purchasing, but this has come up again in terms of water bottles, and just ensuring that we have ways for staff and employees to get fresh water. So I'll stop there. I don't know what Ann wants to say about it.
Ann?
Thank you. Yeah, I would just add that, I realize Alan is just getting back, into the swing of things. So, we appreciate the survey that he and his department had done before regarding, what was in the various buildings. So, yeah, we just wanted, I think the next step, we'd like to hear what facilities thinks, but we're wondering, what the next step would be in that. Would it be, an estimate, on trying to get more water bottle filling stations or some type of thing, you know, in different departments. Because if we kind of, if we want to enforce that more, as Amanda said, you know, we want to give people our alternative, just not say, just rather than say, don't, you know, we're not going to reimburse for a water bottle, but we want to, you know, make sure that, you know, this is coming at least down the pike, that we can tell them this will be coming soon if they don't have them in their buildings.
Okay. So you're right that that Alan's been out 6 months. As far as I know, I asked Alan earlier if the EPP group has met in the last several months, and apparently not. I think Nancy Webster was kind of team leader there. And so I was curious if there had been any more discussion in the last 6 months. Apparently not. But in any case, I know that when we last reported to the committee, and I don't know, Amanda, if you were there or not, because it's been a while. We basically presented inventory of all the buildings where there were, you know, existing, water fountains, and also what most departments, a lot are doing, where they have their own, the water coolers, kind of the spring water type. I mean, the legislature has one right there as you come into the chambers. Many departments prefer that over, you know, the drinking fountains in the building. Many have indicated just because it's chlorinated water versus, you know, the spring water. We had identified, I think, Alan, was it 2 or 3 buildings where there wasn't, either there were issues or there were no water fountains. I think Public Works is one.
Two buildings. One is here in the highway department, and the other is the old courthouse. I have to apologize for my voice. It's still trying to claim disability, but the rest of me is okay. So,
Fine, Alan.
And the other one is a leased space, which is assigned council over at Center Ithaca. They don't actually have any means to fill a water bottle unless they go down to the main floor. So briefly, the highway department has an old water fountain, but they have 30 plus or minus staff, and most of them go out on the road. So they would queue up for 10 minutes, you know, if they wanted to fill up a water bottle. So that really doesn't work for them. And the other one is the old courthouse, which has also an old water fountain on the first floor. There's actually 2, one doesn't work. And that old water fountain really isn't suited well for filling a water bottle. You just can't get a water bottle under there. So they have to go down to either, you know, the basement or up to the legislature. So if it were up to me, it would, you know, we would do something about those 3 spaces. But as far as the other ones, you know, I did an inventory, as Amanda noted, and I could resend that because I know you have new members on the committee. As far as the other ones, there are ways, either sinks and kitchenettes or existing water fountains or water coolers, that they can fill water bottles, except those 3 departments.
That would be helpful if you could resend that.
I will do that.
Questions for Alan or Rel? Thank you for that update. Oh, Amanda's hand's up again.
Yeah, just also thank you. Yeah, and if you could resend that, that'd be great. I think, yeah, definitely, you know, it sounds like the highway definitely needs something, because those are people out working all day and they clearly need water. So that would certainly be a priority for me. And I mean, maybe when the rest of us see the full inventory, we can, you know, I guess I'm not sure what the pros and cons are of, you know, a water fountain versus a kitchen sink, or, you know, if that level of nuance is necessarily important, but it's, I guess, worth talking about. So yeah, so thank you for this, and I'm glad you're back, Alan.
Me too.
Anything else on this issue? Randa and Ann, thanks for bringing it back to our attention.
Yeah, if I could just say, Alan, welcome back to work, and, we'll try and take it easy on you, at least from our point of view. I can't speak for Arel.
I wanted to ask about the main courthouse. The front entrance, the north steps are roped off because of some deterioration over there. Are there plans to have that repaired soon?
Yes, we actually met with an engineer. It's been maybe 3 weeks or if not longer about that. We actually walked around all of the main courthouse, looked at the old jail, but also your building. The entrance on the DeWitt side, there's some deterioration along the railings on the ramp and also the court entrance. And so we're working with them to propose some design measures for improvement there to do that. I think the challenge right now is labor, finding labor, good masons to do that tend to be occupied on projects because there aren't a lot of, really good masons to do the work. So, fortunately, at least for the front entrance to the main courthouse, we don't have to replace the actual stones. That a project we did several years ago, we actually had to replace the stones. And we had to go to a stone quarry, I think in Indiana for that. So it's basically resetting those existing, the steps on the one side. Once we correct that one, then we'll look at the opposite side, which would be the south steps, which are in much better shape. And so, yeah, that's something that we want to move quickly on and take advantage of the summer and fall to get that work done. So long answer or short answer is yes, our plan is to make repairs to that, but we want to make any improvements to prevent this. Each time we do this, we always say we want it to last a long time. And unfortunately, in the Northeast, it's not a good idea to have exterior masonry steps, but we're not going to change that. It's a historic building, and it's something that we want to continue to be able to have these exterior steps. So we are working with consultants and contractors to try to get that repaired as quickly as possible this year.
Also, I thought the restoration after the excavation for the transformer at that building, looking at them, the grass growing and everything, it looks really nice. The mulching and all of that, and the magnolias don't seem any worse for wear.
Right.
There, we were kind of concerned about them.
Yes, that's right. You and Dan in particular, and I said to the contractors, whatever you do not hit the roots on the. So they had to do a lot of hand digging along the front from the corner of the main courthouse towards the steps. Was a lot of hand digging to avoid, excavators hitting any roots.
But they seem to blossom very well this year, so we're glad to see that. Anything else for Arel or Alan this morning? Randy?
Yes, Arel, could you give us an update on the public safety project? How you making out with that? Or
yes, good. Yeah, I heard that, and I was planning to report on that. So we are still reviewing proposals with contractors. We've had several meetings with them. The issue is that, costs are higher, which is unfortunate, but it's a reality now. The market is the costs for both labor and materials are higher. And so what we've been trying to do in meeting with the contractors is trying to either do some value engineering, looking at the scope of work. We've already whittled, even before we went to bid, really the scope items. And so at this point, I don't feel comfortable, nor do our engineers feel comfortable eliminating scope. These are things that, as you recall, we did a building condition assessment of the public safety building of all the deficiencies. And these are the deficiencies that really were the higher priorities. So these are things that we need to do. We can't, defer these improvements another year. And so what we've been looking at, I think I may have mentioned at the last committee meeting, was that we got initial numbers and they weren't all in at that point, and they were coming in high, and that we were going to have meetings with the contractors to try to discuss the reasons for that. And so we're well informed in the reasons for that. And that's not going to change in the near future as far as cost. So, I mean, waiting is not going to put us in a better situation. Actually, waiting is putting us in a worse situation as far as pricing. And so one thing that we did entertain in talking to contractors is we said, well, what if we boarded out all the inmates? Because right now the initial proposals were based on the building fully occupied and that they would have to basically work in zones. It was about 22 different zones. All at this, they would start at zone 1, all contractors. Once they completed all work in that zone, they would move to the next zone. Well, obviously that's going to take longer than if they had full reign of the entire, at least the detention side can work anywhere in the building. And so once we indicated to them, well, give us now a proposal if you were able to work anywhere in the building and didn't have to check in and check out with the officers before going in and leaving the building, tools and such. And so we got numbers back, and still the numbers were high because then we had to make estimates on board out costs. So we figured, well, if the construction took 4 months in the facility, then we would have to be boarding out inmates for 4 months. And so we had to do an estimate of how many inmates are we talking about. So I spoke to Derek and we figured, let's say 40 on average. And the cost is about $100 per day per inmate. And so that's about $500,000 for 4 months. And so we would have to save, in excess of $500,000 from the contractors in order to be able to, fund the board outs. It's not the solution that I would want. I mean, boarding out inmates is not good. It's harder for visitors, for them to be visited by family members. They'd have to go to, most likely it might be Broome County if we were boarding them out. But also it's uncertain. Right now it's in that range, lower 40s, upper 30s. That could change in 5 months. And really, once we would award contract to the contractors, they would have to order all the materials. So we wouldn't even start the work until all the materials are on site. And that could take up to 5 months. And so 5 months from now, that inmate population could be higher. And then, if we're boarding out now much higher levels, 60 inmates for 4 or 5 months, that could really increase that cost. So my feeling is we're still waiting to get the final numbers now if we were to give contractors full reign of the detention side of the facility to get their numbers. And they've gone down a little bit, but not significantly. And so once we do get the numbers, I will most likely be coming back to committee asking for more money. I mean, right now, what I'm seeing is it's about 15% higher with the market and costs. It's going to cost us around 15% more, which is about $600,000. I mean, the project was approved at $4 million, and it's about $600,000 in additional funding. So I said, I'm just giving kind of a heads up. We will know better most likely next week once we get their firm numbers. What I'm trying to do is sign contracts as quickly as possible because those proposals are only good for a limited amount of time. So the longer I wait, then those costs go up. And that's kind of the dilemma that we're in, is that there's really no good option. I think my personal opinion is the best option is that we do not board out inmates, that we keep them here, and that we do the project as originally scoped, which was working in an occupied facility and just in different zones than boarding out inmates.
Thank you for being creative about it. It's a real challenge for you, I'm sure, and the costs are just out of your control, right?
Right.
So thanks for working hard on it. Yep.
Thank you.
Appreciate that report. Any other questions on that? I know we're not supposed to look backward, but I just keep saying if we had actually done the project when we tried to do it a few years ago, a lot of us wanted to move forward. We wouldn't be having to figure out another $600,000 right now. But that didn't happen. Okay, anything else, Arel, that you'd like to bring up this morning?
No, nothing that is of high priority at this point.
Okay, good. Randy's got a hand up.
Earl, I apologize. I'd like to talk about the 400 Tioga Street area, the red
Well, we got a
building.
discussion about that coming.
Was that on there?
Got
See the
downtown
agenda.
facilities discussion later on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind then.
Coming right up, so.
I missed that. I'll wait.
All right.
Anything else you've got, Arel?
Not on this. No.
Okay. I don't have anything more on transportation. Let me just go into the downtown facilities discussion so we can spend some time on that. I think the other items can go fairly quickly afterwards. We won't take up all our time. We kind of left it last time after our tour, talking about the two buildings that we had toured and what might be some options for us. Randy, why don't you go ahead and ask your question about?
Sure. First on the red house, I'll call it. You mentioned, and we didn't go in the basement because of asbestos. And if we are going to sell that building or try to.
Well, that's not been decided, Randy.
Okay, but no matter what you do, if you keep it, whatever, you still have to clean up the asbestos, right? You just have to. You can't go in that, you can't go in the basement. You can't have workers go in the basement. You know, that asbestos has got to be cleaned up one way or another. And if you do decide to sell it, you can't pass that along to the next person or company that buys it. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, sure. I mean, when we bought it, we knew that, we saw that. We could have asked for that, but for the previous owners to do that. I mean, it's deteriorated. I mean, Ann knows. I mean, she was the one the last one, probably legislator that walked in there with us a couple of years ago. It's been a while, and we had to put like brick pavers in there just because there was water in the basement. It's a dirt floor, stone foundation for most of it. There's some concrete, but and the insulation is on the pipe, piping and fittings was deteriorating. And so that's what's happened. There's areas where there's been more deterioration, others where there's actually asbestos debris on the ground. And so to do the abatement is, truly possible. And it would cost quite a bit of money to do that. But I agree. Yeah, if we would like to sell it, we would want to do that. I don't think we're required to do that. We can disclose it, but I think it'd probably be better to do the abatement prior to selling it. And even if we were to keep it and renovate it, which is not my opinion to do that, but we would need to do the same thing. So all I need is your direction to, if that's what you want me to do, I can get that moving.
And Koreman.
So I was able to get into the basement before, as Arel said. A couple of us were able to get in there a couple of years ago when we bought the building. And as a home inspector, I can tell you that a lot of places are sold around the county that have asbestos in them, and and you don't have to abate it. You can sell it as is. They can certainly ask, as Arel mentioned, we could have asked, for them to do it, and they could have done it or not done it. But that's part of negotiating, when you're selling a place, you can negotiate that. And, but there's zero requirements for us when we're selling the building to do any type of hazard mitigation of any sort. and even a dangerous thing. I mean, of course, we'd want to make sure people could, like walk around, the steps aren't going to fall down, something like that, or they're not going to fall through the floor because then they couldn't look at the place. But, I've looked at places that are worse than that. And, you wear the appropriate equipment and you can inspect it. Their inspectors, can inspect it. I think this would be, if we were looking at this building, wasn't there an environmental assessment going to be done on it?
Well, it was the other building, one for the Red House was done because when we were looking at, doing a project there at the Center of Government, that building was going to be integrated into the Center of Government. So we had done an assessment there. And so they noted the asbestos in the basement as part of that assessment.
So I think we would want to go down, I don't have it in front of me, but maybe when we talk about this, just to go down that decision tree type thing, that it's not decision tree, but that's what I call it, but that Lisa sent out, and go through that and go through the, take things step by step. So I guess I would wonder what would be the next decision that we would be making. And maybe we just need to get
Are you
that.
asking someone that particular question, Ann, or are you is it rhetorical?
Well, I'm just wondering if let's see, it's 10:20. If we're going to spend some time on this to get, that would be my suggestion is, unless we don't have time today, I would get, I would want the decision thing that Lisa had made up for us and to go down and start checking things off and see what's next, or if we agree with that, but I would want to just go through it, or because we could be here all day talking about the couple of buildings over there of, we want this, somebody wants the lead, someone wants it repainted, somebody wants the siding done, somebody wants to redo the roof on the dental building, somebody wants to demolish it. So I would like to go through this as methodically as possible.
Amanda?
Well, I would agree with that. I don't have that document in front of me. I probably could dig it up, but yeah, I think we could and we should sort of say, okay, well, what's the next decision, and how are we going to make that decision? But I did have a question, because I've heard both sides about that red house. Some people say it's a historical house. Some people say it's not. Is it? I know it's in a historical district, but is it officially a historical building? Does anyone know?
Not.
It's not. Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think Randy has brought to us a question, which is a decision, and that is whether we think we should go ahead down the road of asbestos removal on this property. We've heard Arel this morning say that he would recommend it, whether we're going to keep it or whether we're going to sell it. And so I personally would like to see an estimate of what the cost of the asbestos removal would be. I don't know the rest of you, but that's my feeling.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I see nodding from Lee. Does that make sense, Amanda?
Yeah, I think at the same time, we've also talked about the dental building, and do we demolish that? Do we renovate that? Maybe for me, the next step is we could talk about the asbestos, and get an estimate on that. That'd be great. But also, what is the estimate on demolishing that building? What is that going to take? And I think that's probably a big project, so it may take a while to figure out an estimate, but and then we have some numbers to work with maybe, and can talk about the different options of what legislators are thinking.
Okay, I think Arel did some work on repair costs. I don't know whether, Arel, you have a demolition or deconstruction cost proposal. I know deconstruction is often more expensive than demolition. I'll let you answer.
Right, so I did approach contractor, a WBE, almost a month ago. And actually it was prior to the last committee meeting. And they came back with a proposal, but that was based on an assumption only that there was asbestos in the roofing material. We have not completed, I've already received scope of work to do the hazardous material assessment, but so based on removal or deconstruction of the existing Baker Dental building with the assumption that the only asbestos would be in the roofing material, that is $100,000. Once we complete the hazard material survey, if there's additional hazardous material, that could increase. But right now, you can figure 100,000.
Can you remind me how much it was going to be to repair the roof?
Well, no, that's for deconstruction. So now for improvements to the building, if the interest is to occupy it, whether temporarily or not, the estimate was from $500,000 to $700,000, which included the roof, which included a sprinkler system, fire alarm system, ADA improvements for access to the building. There is in that range.
Lisa.
Could I just say for that, Arel, you did those estimates several months ago prior to the increased cost of
Right.
materials as well. So I would include an inflationary factor into that as a
Yeah, 20% is at this point for orders of magnitude on top of that. So, and I think my recommendation is not to do that. I think that's what I stated before, not to make those improvements.
Ann? You're muted.
I'm wondering if the process, say, let's just take the dental building. If, would the process be that we vote, like say, could I make a motion here that we go ahead and demolish the dental or deconstruct the dental building, and then it would go to the full legislature? Is that the process? That's my first question.
Well, yes, you're certainly welcome to make a motion if you think that we're ready to do that at this point. I'm a little reluctant to do that today, but that's up to you if you want to bring a motion.
I'm asking, would that be the process, right? We would vote on it here, and then it would go to the full legislature. Is that correct?
Yes, we would. I think the full legislature needs to chime in on this and decide whether or not we're doing it. Probably the best way to do it would be with a resolution that says we recommend that happen and that the funds be expended to do it.
I would like to make a resolution that we
Oh,
demolish.
we need to draw a resolution, maybe.
Do we need to do that, or to write one up formally?
I think that would be the proper way to do it. Go ahead. Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, I could go either way on if a resolution is needed. But I think for me, like what I personally need is Arel and Lisa or whoever to make us a chart that says deconstruction is going to cost this much, asbestos is going to cost this much, the red building, like there's so many numbers, there's so many options. There needs to be something spelled out that we can, like, you can tell me the numbers, but that's not really going to sink in until I can see it on a piece of paper. So so that would be my request, is to have that spelled out as clearly as possible, what each one includes. And then, at at our next meeting, we'll have that. We can talk through that. And I think, Anne, I wouldn't quite be prepared to to vote on something right now. But once I have those numbers, I think it'll be much clearer, what we can do and what we can't do. And, but then, yes, I think that this committee can make a recommendation, but I think the full legislature has to vote on this eventually. So hopefully, yes, it'd be great to sort of move this along quickly. So maybe we can do that in the next, by the next meeting.
Just, there are members of the legislature that are not in a hurry to demolish or sell those buildings. I want to point that out.
Mike, just for my own clarity, a couple of questions, and it's more probably conversational than anything else. Kind of working backwards, do we have a long-term vision formulating here as to what what we'd like to do with the dental site? I think we're all pretty much of the opinion that any future county office building or whatever we term the project is going to be over here on Tioga Street on the corner. But is there some intent that there will be a county usage for the old doctor's offices, or ultimately are we going to be marketing that site, or do we need to hold that for 5 to 10 years or whatever the case may be as temporary staging and parking, what have you? And that's part of what gets me to my thinking on what we do with it. The second part is if that answer is that no, we're probably going to declare it surplus and sell it, does it make a difference marketability wise whether the building's there or not? It'd be a tough haul for a developer to step in and do something with it, because we're starting to get a sense of what the costs of fixing that building would be. The third part has the city weighed in anywhere as to what they'd like to see down in that area? And do they really care, or do they want a vacant lot? Those are some things in my mind before I'd be ready to step forward on committing.
Lisa, do you want to comment?
I don't know that I can answer that question on behalf of the county.
Or conversational.
But sure. But what I wanted to speak to, it gets at, I think, what you're saying and what Amanda had said earlier in terms of clarifying the options before us and coming forward with more up-to-date costs on those options. And it's sounding to me like for the dental building, our options are to maintain it or just do nothing with it, which there are some costs there to the county in terms of liability and continued deterioration of the building. So that's one option. I don't know that it's the best option, but that is one that by not making a decision, that's what we would do. The second would be to make improvements to that, and we would need to get the cost estimates as to what those would be. And again, that would be improvements to the status quo without having a longer term vision if we wanted to renovate it for other use, because that in itself would be yet another decision, or the cost to deconstruct. So we can come back with those, some of those estimates to better inform your decision-making for the next meeting. I just want to make sure that we have a list of what those cost estimates are that you would be looking for. So it sounds like those would be what you'd be looking for the dental building, and for the red building, the cost of the abatement, asbestos abatement, and renovation as well. And then I think previously you had asked about the what we paid for each of those sites and what they're currently assessed at. And we provided that information to you via email, but we can put all of that together in one place as well for the committee's consideration. So have I left anything out that you'd be interested in?
Just the basic question, do you see the county maintaining ownership of that? Is there a need for it down the road very far? Or is it something that we really need to be moving toward declaring surplus?
Well, I think if we're putting the focus into the space needs and that can be accommodated in the center of government, I think we've determined that would be a preferable space for development. We can develop higher, and it's more in the usage area of the current county buildings as opposed to getting into the neighborhood there. We have also determined that as any future potential construction occurs here on this site, we will need an area for staging. And when the parcels are sold to INHS for the housing on Sears Street, that's also going to require some staging. So in the short term, I think the parking and the staging will be necessary as we complete these other construction projects. Longer term is to be decided.
And that's kind of where my thinking was going with it, was that ultimately the county is probably going to let that property go after some of these other major projects are done.
I couldn't disagree more.
You couldn't. Okay. Well, and I guess that's a two-prong approach as far as developing our options, because if the thinking is that it's going to be something the county is going to hold for longer term use or eventual whatever it may be, if you're thinking parking or maybe another building someday, then yeah, clearing the lot is probably makes the most economical sense, and you've got it taken care of. If the thinking is that we're going to market it in some manner, then I want to see us get the best value out of it. And I'm asking, is it worth putting any more into it, or is it of value to sell it with the facilities that are in it? You know, what gets back the money that's been invested in the best way, or what makes the best long-term investment for us to from a wider county facility standpoint?
Let's take about 10 more minutes because we still got the rest of the agenda on this, and then we can schedule our second special meeting on this for next month if folks would like to do that. I have hands from both Amanda and Ann.
Yeah, well, just a response to Lee. I mean, I think everything you're asking is exactly what we're asking, you know, and those are the questions that the legislature needs to decide with all this input from facilities and administration. And I think, you know, that's been the question on everybody's mind for a couple of years now. What are we doing with this? So I think at some point we do need to have a vote and either say, yes, we want to sell it. No, we want to keep it. You know, like we have to, that's what we're trying to work through. So it may be that we, you know, agree, okay, we're going to keep it for 5 years because we have all these other things we're working on and we might need to use it. And then that legislature in 5 years can decide if they want to sell it or what they want to do with it. But some decision, you know, we're trying to get to some decision. And to Lisa, yes, I think you got all the things that should be in the chart in the assessment. And I don't know if there's a number to this, but also like, what is the cost of doing nothing, of just, you know, leaving it alone? I don't know. I mean, there's, you know, there's risks, but I don't know if there's a financial cost. So So that would be the only other thing I would add.
Ann?
Thanks. I want to thank Katrina for sending out a couple minutes ago the decision-making considerations for downtown facilities again. I will make sure I save it on my computer so I can look it up easily. The only thing I would want to clarify, if Randy and maybe some others were asking for the asbestos abatement, I would just want clarification on that. Are you meaning just because there might be, there's a good chance, or maybe we've already determined there's asbestos in other parts of the building? I was thinking you meant just the basement. Is that correct, Randy?
Yes.
And I'm good with that, of just the basement. Getting an estimate for that.
Is that all right with everybody? All right. I see nods.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, more to, Lisa, go ahead.
I just had one other clarifying question. At somewhere in this conversation, maybe I heard someone say, is this red building in the historic district? Is it historic? And if so, or if not, was there a question about deconstruction of the red building, or no? We're talking either sell it or renovate it.
Well, that was my question. And I guess I just had heard, I wasn't sure because I felt like I've heard both people say both sides, like, yes, it's historic and we can't do anything to it. And no, it's not. So, I mean, for me personally, like, if it's in good enough condition that once the asbestos is fixed and, other, repairs are done, that it could either be used or sold, then I wouldn't personally need to know about the deconstruction cost of that. But others may feel differently.
Okay, thank
Okay. All right. Randy, yes.
Yeah, I would agree.
Asking these questions that go on and on.
I would agree. I don't see a value in deconstructing the red house. The only question I have is really for Lisa in administration is there any operation that the county has that could use either one of those buildings? And Rel, I think you mentioned it would be up to $800,000. So just to make the dental building usable, is there value in moving IT once, for example? They want to move once. Could we move them there? Was there value in that? So I'm just using an example. I don't know. I know the DA is short on space. They want them out of that. Could they move? So I think it's a matter of the strategy as far as how we want to move these people, and if there's a value in keeping any of those buildings. So I'll leave that up to you guys. But
Good point. All right. Okay, more to come. Shall I go ahead and schedule a special meeting on this? Don't see
next
any,
month?
don't see any reactions.
Once you've got some numbers.
Okay, if we have those numbers available, we'll look to see if we can find a special meeting time. All right, thank you.
Or if we have time in this meeting for next time.
Well, this will continue to be on the agenda each time, but I think we have an understanding about a special meeting if we can. All right, let's move on. I just wanted to put on the agenda for Randy and I to report about the TC3 capital construction project. I call it an oversight committee, and it's I think the college calls it an advisory committee, but it's the two counties. The property at TC3, where the college is, and I'm not talking about where the dorms are, belongs to the two counties. It doesn't belong to the college, it belongs to the two counties. The college is our community college, of course. Where the dormitories are belongs to the TC3 Foundation, which is a separate entity. When there are capital projects needed And there's frequently needs for that campus, whether they're exterior or interior. There is a process by which the college can apply for state grant funding to pay 50% of the cost of construction. The other 50% has to be paid locally, and it can be paid directly by the counties. It can be paid with grant funding, other grant funding. It can be paid with other sources of revenue. For example, as has been used over the years, money that comes in from chargebacks of students attending from other counties. Other counties will pay TC3 for that. That source of revenue, which has been relied on, of course, has been hurt by the pandemic and the reduction in the number of students at TC3. The same as all community colleges where the number of students is down. But anyway, TC3 has a list of 40 projects, Randy, did they tell us? Bill Talbot has been heading up this effort. They're working on prioritizing which ones are going to be done. They did receive a $3 million grant, which is from the federal government. I believe it's from the federal government, that's going to pay for interior renovations of the labs, which haven't been updated since the 1990s. So you got electronics lab, you've got chemistry, you've got physics, and some other labs up there that have basically old equipment. They mentioned to me that they don't have electronic scales, for example, in the chemistry lab. They still have to rely on the old balance scales that we used to use in high school with the weights that you put on them. So that's something that's going to move ahead. But on the exterior, we have allocated some money, and Cortland County is allocated. We've paid that in. Do you remember how much it was, Randy? Was it 300 and 400,000? Yeah, and Cortland has wanted to support it, but doesn't have all the cash. So what they're going to do is use their forced labor to help with some of the exterior construction projects, like paving, for example. The college has, in this year's state budget, got, was it 600,000? I'm trying to remember the exact figure.
It was 800,000.
$800,000. Well, it's 800,000 they have available to do some of the work. That $800,000 is not going to be enough to do all the paving and sidewalk reconstructions. We took a tour out there and found that they were pointing out how bad some of the asphalt is. The site, and it's always been a problem, is peppered with springs. It's on a side hill, and the springs cause subsiding underneath the various parking lots and sidewalks and those kinds of things. So that's what we looked at. There's more to come, but I just wanted to respond on that. And Randy and I are the two representatives from the county on that. Randy, would you like to add anything?
One of their big issues, pavement, is the drainage. And so that's why a lot of the pavement is deteriorating. So, and they do have one part of the building where water is actually coming in when we get these torrential downpours. And also that Jeff Smith went out and met with Bill Talbot, and I think also with the highway department from Cortland to see if they have any advice or suggestions. And I then know that happened, I think, last Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah,
Might have been this Tuesday.
he and Bill Talbot were going to meet on that. You're exactly right. So just to bring you up to date on that one. Any questions I can answer? Let's do minutes, April 13. Someone want to move those? Randy? Seconded by Amanda. Any discussion on on those minutes? Ready to vote? Lee?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes,
Ann?
Yes,
Randy?
Yes.
I vote yes. April 21st. Someone want to move those? Amanda? Seconded by Ann. Discussion? Okay, let's vote. Lee?
Yes.
Amanda?
yes,
Ann?
yes,
Randy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We have a budget adjustment and transfer. I hope we don't spend a whole lot of time on this. It's $30. Any questions on that one? All right. Well, maybe it went faster on this other stuff than I thought it would. Anything else that anyone would like to bring up for the F&I committee today? Not seeing anything, so I guess we can move to adjourn.
thanks, Mike.
All righty, thanks to all of you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you to Katrina. Thank you
Thanks,
to
Ralph,
Lisa.
for giving you all
And
that work.
everybody up there, Alan and Arel and John and everybody that's helped this morning.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.